And we are live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Live Real Talk with Nina. And this morning, I am super excited to have Dana Froriep. And I've talked to her so many times already, so I feel like I'm just so excited to introduce her to all of you guys. So Dana and I know each other through the Dames. I feel like every other, or if not every guest I've had on this show has been a Dame. Speaks to the caliber of who we have in that networking group. And you know what, Bryn, if you have a sec, can you put the link to the Dames into the chat? So anyway, that's a great networking opportunity, but that's not what we're here for. So Dana does something really, really interesting. So I would like for you to introduce yourself, Dana, because I could never do it any justice.
Oh, thanks, Nina. I was really looking forward to this. We have such great conversations. So to bring this topic to your audience here. So brief highlight, of course, you can go to my LinkedIn profile, dig in and get more, but I built a 7-figure business in the massage and supply industry, sold that in 2016. You know, digging back further, I grew up in a cult. Along the way for healing, became a dominatrix. So I have a very wide range of experiences, but my passion these days really is all about taking all of my training, all of my experience with working with clients over the last 30 years, and helping people to step into their power in a way that allows them to scale their business up, but with ease instead of being on the grind constantly on the treadmill, because there's a lot of things that we can do to scale up with ease, but it takes a shift in consciousness and a shift in mindset to do that.
Yeah. And I think like, especially, being in that with you too, that the mindset, I think, is like 95% of the game, isn't it?
I really believe that like, the first 6 figures, you pretty much can kind of grind it out to get to the first 6 figures. You got to work your butt off. But after that, it is 100% mindset that will get in your way. The systems, the funnels, all the things that everybody sells you, it really comes down to how are you showing up? How are you moving? How are you managing your team? How are you negotiating with people? What are you putting in place? When are you putting it in place? Which is all about our internal game. And it's very exciting because that's something that we have complete control over, how we show up.
And then again, I feel sometimes it has control over us, right?
Yes.
And I think that's where you come in, right? To clean that up, so to speak. Yeah,
absolutely. Because it's interesting with the pandemic. I think people have been really forced to look at what is your core pattern. What is that piece that keeps coming up again and again and again? And it's time now that we actually sit and address it. And I find for a lot of the clients that I work with, they're control freaks and adrenaline junkies. And, that comes from, right? Yeah. Not pointing any fingers at you, Nina. But those patterns of wanting to do that really get us into trouble. Actually, it was interesting because I was just talking with one of my clients, and her pattern of this adrenaline junkie and making herself wrong has created the challenge of not having good communication with her team. And so then her team is having the mistakes are happening. So it comes down to it. Like, we want to think, oh, well, here, just communicate better with your team. No, that's not what the problem is. That's the Band-Aid. If we go back further, dig in deeper, then we actually create a sustainable change.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm sorry, I'm playing with my lights here.
That's good.
It's getting darker outside. There's like a storm coming. So, all right, you can actually see my face.
You're looking beautiful.
Oh, thank you. And I agree with you. So, we know the saying, the fish rots from the head. So,
Yes.
and I mean, that's a little crass, but the way you show up in your company, and not just for yourself, it just bleeds into everything, be it your vendors, your contractors, your team, however, nowadays, a lot of us do just contractors, but, and your clients, I mean, in everything. I mean, for me, when I've been working with coaches as well, and I find that once I can have a mind shift set, then it really it moves the needle. Not just, the growth is not like this. The growth goes just like boom. It's exponential.
It
And
really
I
is.
remember when I could wrap my brain around not having to sell, but helping people. Just I mean, it's the smallest of, and yet it's such a huge difference, right?
It
In
is. And like that's a great example because we're
Mhm.
told, right? I mean, and it's not like you didn't hear that ever before you had the mindset shift, but
Mhm.
we're told, oh, well, help people. And so what happens is that until we've done that deeper work where it's safe for us to help and we don't feel like we're gonna lose, we don't feel like we're, we don't, it's not triggering any of those old, patterns and beliefs, then what happens is that it's incongruent and you're not actually leaning into helping and the person can feel it. That's the reality. Like
Yeah.
when we actually show up and we're like, all right, so tell me what's going on, how can I help, how can I
Mhm.
serve you today? They know that, they know when it's genuine, they know when it's forced in order to try to make a sale. And that shift is the critical piece in sales, particularly because people can feel that so dynamically.
Yeah, and I think this is a great point, and also to sort of go into where I want to go with you today. I've been on, we all have been on 100,000, 350 million Zoom calls in the last couple of, especially in the last
Oh
year.
my God.
And, there's the people who say, and I just had this call, I just, it's so vivid in my mind, was last week. I talked to this person. We had a functional, um, like, this is what I do, this is what you do conversation. But it wasn't like sparks and, love at first sight or anything like that. But, it was interesting enough. And at the end of the call, he says, how can I be of service to you? And it took me aback. It really took me back
Hmm.
because it came from a place of, this is at the point in the script where I say this.
Yes.
And and to me it was like, holy crap, I don't want you helping me because you just recited a line out of your freaking script. So I
Hmm.
waffled around a little bit and told him, it reiterated who my target audience was, and yes, it would be so lovely if you could send some people my way. And I think I gave him the link to my master class, something like that. But and I think this is what, so I did. And for all of you listening, and hello Rocio, hi, good to see you. So Dana and I actually recorded a couple of weeks ago something that I'm calling the expert series. So I'm inviting experts into talks about things that supplement or further go deeper in what I'm teaching my clients in terms of not just the mechanics of video marketing, but taking it up to a level of mastery and go much deeper. And with Dana, we talked about um, having this magnetism that pulls people into your orbit on video, and you actually called it the sexual energy.
Yes.
um, and we did a little so the expert series is first a talk that sort of introduces the expert and what their expertise is, and then the second part is an actual exercise. So Dana did an exercise with me, and it just the to experience the difference between being ha 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 and genuine and yourself on video, and then actually coming from within and coming not just from your brain and your heart, but from your gut. That was an amazing experience. And Dana, I have to tell you, what has opened up for me since is not only to experience it for myself and be very aware of it. I now see, like, I have two wonderful clients right now in the cohort. They're both amazing on video. I mean, they just took to video like fish to water. But they're both overperforming a little bit. And
Hmm.
I've not been able to, I mean, we did some exercises and I will point it out to them. But after my talk and my exercise with you, I was like, guys, you're coming from your head. You're not coming from within, your gut. And I had them both watch the talk that the two of us had, and you should see their performances now. I mean, I am so excited to see those two post videos.
Yay.
And I mean, and so it was not just for me, but it was also for me being able to see it in other people. So that was
Mhm.
that was amazing. That was super freaking amazing. Anyway, I had to share
I
that.
love it. I love it. Yeah. I loved that conversation and, getting into that training because it does change how you show up. It changes, the magnetism. I noticed that we've got a question in the comments about, is it different than charisma? And I would say no, that the magnetism and charisma are two different words to describe the same thing. We
Mhm.
think of charisma. Now, charisma tends to also have a bit of an uglier overlay, right? We think about
Good.
the
Yeah.
manipulation side of it,
Mhm.
but pure charisma, right? That person who walks in the room and they don't say a word, they just walk in with this grace and this presence that everyone turns and says, and it's like, who is that, right? You just feel their
Mhm.
presence. That to me is this magnetism, the true charisma that's integrated.
Yeah.
And so I call it sexual energy because it's coming from our sexual centers. So when we think about the chakra system, then our root chakra and our second chakra, so the root sits just at the very base, so where your perineum is, so between the genitals and your butthole, to get a little graphic, is
But you're
is the
doing it very elegantly.
I'm trying not to be gross.
Okay.
So is your root chakra, and that one is what allows you to get really connected to the earth. And this piece where people say, they're grounded, you're in your body, you're present. And
Mhm.
then, that between that one and the second one, which sits between your belly button and your pelvic bone, those two combined help you connect to your sexual energy. And sexual energy, just to clarify, because we did talk about this a lot in your masterclass training that we did, is about the creative energy. It is the aliveness, the passion, when you are really aligned with what you're doing and
Mhm.
you're coming from this place of, I just love this. It's like, I want to do this. I want to be here with you all day long, right? When we have that lit up, and probably people can feel that. Like as I talk about it, I get it. It just starts ramping up for me, right? But that's what compels people. And when that is running through your system, you don't have to be perfect in how you say things, in what you say.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know whether I said this story on our training or not. I can't remember, but um, I remember this one time I had somebody come into the store. So I had a massage supply outlet and spa supplies, and this woman came in and we were running a new training. It was going to be the first time running, and I'm like, oh my God, you just have to take this. It's like, it's just going to be, it's just going to be so epic. It's going to be fabulous. It's, and I couldn't get the words out to actually describe it properly. It sounded kind of like garbly goop. But she was just so lit up by my passion
Mhm.
that she put her money down.
Yeah.
So this is what I get so excited about, is that we can start to like let go of needing to get things perfect
Yeah.
when we drop into being in our bodies, to being connected with that passion, creative, sexual energy that allows other people to feel excited with us. And not to worry, it's not about inviting your clients to have sex with you. None of that.
Well, yes, that would be that. Yes, that would not be good.
That's not, it's not the point.
No, I think how we always say, people smell inauthenticity from a mile away, and
Yeah.
it's not even. I think, and I do want to give credit where credit is due. A lot of the people that I work with, they're really, really passionate about what they do, and they really, really, really want to help people.
Mhm.
But they're also stuck watching these perfect people on TV or these perfect people on whatever shows, and they think that they have to perform on that level, right? Or have to be perfect. And I think perfect is and I'm saying this with a Swiss passport in hand. I really find that perfect is, I've always believed in perfect being a really good thing and an important thing in your life, and I'm starting to realize the destructive power of perfect, because it really it holds us back in so many areas where we could not only excel but even have our area of genius, but we're so nervous about the perfect. And then what I see when people start showing up on video is often that they're so nervous and so they're holding themselves back from their natural selves.
Mhm.
They're not inauthentic people. They're actually wonderful people, and I just have them, like, we're doing right now, just chatting on a Zoom.
Mhm.
Or but then when sort of that, camera, lights, action, it's like, you know
Yeah.
and that comes with practice. But again, what we talked about at the very, very beginning, there's that moment where when you have a mindset shift,
Mhm.
where the growth is no longer just sort of a ramp up. It goes up straight. And I think that if I could create that for my clients, for instance, I would be very happy with myself. And I think that is the kind of work that you bring to the table, where and I think that's why what you do is so beyond amazing. And at first, it's when you meet people who do something that is so different, you might be a little worried about what's the woo factor here, what's
Mhm.
really, what's really real here. But what you do is 110% real.
It is. And whether you want to think that energy is woo, it's out there, for a long time has been seen as out there, but the reality is that we are made up of both physical and energetic matter. And no matter what your opinion is, I bet everyone has had an experience in which they've, sat in a room and could feel somebody behind them staring at them. And that is 100% energy. That's the only reason that you would actually be able to feel it. So
Mhm.
we have this energy component to us. Ignoring it is not going to make it go away.
Mhm.
But when we start embracing that component and we start embracing the fact that, we need to change what is going on in our belief systems, in how we show up, and making it so that, the subconscious brain is not derailing us into this land of like, oh my God, that's not safe, right? Because this is often what happens, is that you first get onto camera and you're like, oh, it's not safe if I screw it up, so I better just get it perfect. Let me, be in the box, right? And so what ends up happening is that you stunt yourself. Whereas when you let yourself really drop in and be fully present, you show up authentically. People feel that.
Mhm.
And then you give yourself that space to think, to actually drop in and like, what do I want to say here? How do I want to say it? And there's no forced communication with it
Yeah.
anymore. And that's what connects people. They're like, oh, that's real. And especially, this day and age, I think people more so than ever want to know what's real. Like, we are bombarded with fake everywhere.
Yeah.
Showing up real and
Mhm.
authentic is the differentiator.
Oh, I mean, 100%. And again, takes a second to wrap your brain around, for sure. And it comes with practice, obviously.
Mhm.
So that was the video part of it. So how does it work? I'm just sort of interested in hearing some cool stories or interesting stories about clients that you've helped where they were stuck on something and it sort of had that moment, that aha moment, like, be it around, I don't know, money, around selling, around deserving the growth, around being able to handle growth. I think for a lot of us, and yours truly to a certain degree, included, there's the fear of, can I handle if I grow? Like, is that
Mhm.
even a lifestyle I want?
Right?
Is that a rat race that I want to re-engage with?
And
Certainly.
assuming that it's a rat race in order
Yeah.
to grow,
Yeah. So,
right? It's
yeah.
yeah, there's so many really cool things. So, I have some great stories. I think I told this one on the training that we did, but it's so good. So one of my clients, she had been already up in the multiple seven figures. And then they started hitting, a slump, and they were having like $60,000 months instead of $200,000 months. Now that's a big difference when you got a team that you got to pay for and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so she started to work with me because she had already realized, I mean, she's done a lot of work. And so it's like, okay, I think this is a mindset piece and we need to get in there. And what was going on at the core of it when we really dug in is that there was a staff member that she wasn't letting go, even though this person was interfering with the business, creating problems, nothing big, but just there and not really supportive of the growth. This employee had been there from the beginning and didn't really want the company to go much bigger because she was going to lose her one-on-one time with the owner. And so she was kind of like a little bit sabotaging things. So I had to work with the owner we did extensive work to look at all the layers of why she didn't want to let this person go, move them out. And then it was just easy. It was just like, oh, yeah, this person needs to go. She had the conversation. It wasn't a big stress. And within 30 days, her close rate moved from, I think it was 37 or 38% up to almost 69%. And, there wasn't a lot of other changes that were done. It was just this dynamic of shifting the internal process for her being willing to step into being the business owner, because that was the thing, is that in order to let that person go, she had to really lean into being the big bad heavy. And those were, right? That was kind of some of the core pieces. And it's those kinds of crazy ideas, crazy beliefs that when we verbalize them sound really crazy, but when we just hang on to them quietly, they seem to make sense. And that's a lot of what I'm helping people to do, is to get really honest about what's underneath there, like what is changing it, so that we can really exponentially go where you want to go, whether that's growth or having more time freedom or having both, or whatever it is.
So, I mean, how do I know? I mean, to me, that sounds like a classical blind spot, right? And obviously blind spots are blind spots because we don't know that we don't know, that we have them.
Yeah.
How do I know, or how are there telltale signs where I'm like, okay, shit, now I gotta call Dana?
I would say the biggest one is that if you keep doing the same pattern over and over again, that's a really good one. It's like,
Don't we all?
right? There's we all have something that it's like, it is, if it is a blind spot, if it's something that you're not seeing and you keep repeating, and we talked about, the control freak. If you have things where, if you're constantly doing the adrenaline pump in your system, that's a really good indication of this. There's some deeper pieces that we need to move out, because you should be able to run whatever size of business that you want to run without doing adrenaline rush. You don't need to be in that spin in order to grow a business. The other thing I would say is that, if the same kind of pattern shows up in all the areas of your life, so I have a few clients that it's like, okay, people are always disrespecting me. They've said this to me. People are always, whether it's my staff, my clients, my ex, and my current boyfriend, and all of, it's like, they're like, everybody always does this to me. Well, okay, so now let's take a look at inside, right? What's the common denominator? What needs to be changed internally so that you stop putting up with that, or you stop putting, sorry, my cat's going to join us. So that it makes it so that they're not as drawn to do that kind of behavior.
Yeah. And then how, I mean, is this a couple of sessions? Is this a course? Is this, just as long as it takes? How do you work with people? I mean, what's the I'm sure everybody's different, but
Everybody's different. Yeah.
um,
I'm a real big one for customize. I like the boutique bespoke kind of solution.
mhm,
Most of my clients are, on a bigger trajectory as far as what they want to do in their business.
yeah,
And we look at bringing me in kind of as a long-term advisor so that we keep addressing situations and issues as they come up
yeah,
rather than only dealing with emergencies, because it's, just like with your health, it's better to deal with things on an ongoing basis.
yeah.
Think of it as having a personal trainer, only it's to whip your brain into shape.
Sounds really good to me.
Right. And then through that, I either have I have two options. So we
Mhm,
can look at a one-on-one package
mhm,
where we figure out how many sessions in a month we need, intense or not intense. And then
mhm.
I also have a mentorship program that allows for that customization, but through a group format.
That's interesting. How does do people? Well, I guess it would be interesting to kind of share what everybody's bumping up against, right? Yeah, yeah,
It's great. Like
yeah.
there's always some commonality and overlap.
Hmm.
What you're going through, then the other 4 or 5 people in the cohort are also experiencing something similar. So you end up being able to learn from everybody's, but you also get very tailored um, coaching in the session for each person.
Yeah, for each person. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
interesting. That's very interesting. So if I come in, I mean, do you have a like a specialty? Like, is it more of a sales mindset? Is it more of a issues around money? I think that is a big one probably as well. Do you find yourself going for like niching on one problem over another, or are they so interconnected that you can't really separate them out?
Everything overlaps. I know I should really
Mhm,
pick a niche. I think if I've niched into anything, it's about helping people scale with ease.
mhm,
And that comes from the mindset side of pieces. Like it's real easy to implement things exactly once your head is in the game, once you're
yeah.
in that alignment. Um, I find actually, it's interesting the money piece, because I actually find that very few people have a true money issue. The lack of money, or they think there's a lack of money, is a symptom of something else.
Ah,
So it's rarely a money issue, and I've said this over and over again, that it's about the money and it's nothing about the money. But that points a direction, because people will often allow themselves to do something when it comes to money. It's like, oh, I'm allowed to spend money on myself because that's going to allow me to make more money. And it's that internal justification. But for some people, they won't allow themselves to say, you know what, hey, I've got this core problem, I keep doing adrenaline rush. They don't necessarily equate that to that's worth spending money on, even though if you keep
mhm,
doing adrenaline rush, you will be burnt out and in a lot of pain.
yeah.
But yes, so that's my own observation with people, is that there's very few money issues.
Interesting. And I think it's probably how you position it or what you call it, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, and so this is maybe a dumb question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway because
I love
I'm actually curious. Is
it.
there like two or three or even one core issue to which everything comes back to when you look at it really deeply?
The majority of people, the core issue is unhealed trauma wounds, because we have a society that wants to sweep it under the rug, and
Mhm,
I find even for people who have done, they think they've done a fair amount of trauma work.
mhm,
They're usually still in recreating a trauma pattern in
mhm,
their life. So you may have healed the original trauma, but you're still reliving that trauma, what we call trauma loop, by creating stress and drama and adrenaline rush and control freak and all of the dynamics.
mhm,
And most of the time it comes down to that core piece. And even if you haven't experienced um, what we would typically call trauma in your own life, in your own childhood,
Mm.
our generations we pass things down genetically. So whatever your parents went through, did they go through the Great Depression? Did they go through,
World War II, yeah.
World War II? Were they in, concentration camp? Or all of these things end up getting passed down. So there's a lot of unresolved trauma, and it doesn't have to be heavy. Like, please don't think that, we're going to have to like get in and, cry for months. I don't like doing that, but we do need to change the hooks that are happening, so that you get out of those loops where you constantly have this piece of I'm wrong, I'm broken, and then creating dynamics that support that belief.
Yeah, and that's not something you can really do by yourself, right? I mean, that needs.
Pretty hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it to some degree, but honestly, the more dynamic release happens when you've got somebody who can really hold a strong container for you to completely get out of it. And from where I sit, like, I work with a lot of people who have done, like I said, the initial trauma work, and now it's the repeating of the loops. And so I get to come in and call them on their bullshit and say, listen, this is what's going on. Right? Like, and hold them accountable. I really like the analogy of the personal trainer. I am the the boot camp personal trainer, but with so much love. I really have the ability to hold people and get them to shift, because it's like, stop wasting time on this. We need to get you going.
Yeah. So talk about shift. Where does the dominatrix come in? What's the story behind that? It's in your description on LinkedIn. By the way, all of you, read Dana's bio on her website. It blows your mind. It's just the depth of what you've gone through and your trauma and your experience in life is something that I would guess pretty much no one who's watching this right now has ever gone through. I mean, that it's quite special. Let's put it that way.
It's unique for sure.
That's important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So as I did mention at the beginning a little bit, so I grew up in a cult, and with that came a lot of different types of abuse that I, got to experience as a child. And then just before my 18th birthday, I left that, knowing that it was not the right fit for me. There's a longer story to this, but that's not an easy choice to make. But it was one that I absolutely had to. And from there, I ended up on a personal development journey. I really wanted to get my brain unscrambled from all of the programming that I grew up with. And, over the next 20 years, I went through lots of different therapies. I was, learning about psychotherapy. I did training in psychology, training in a lot of, energy modalities and all of those things. And I was a massage therapist. That's where I started my training. And I had a client come into me, and she disclosed that she was involved in the kink. And so kink is the slang word for the BDSM community, so the dominatrix world. And of course, she wanted to have that open so that we could have honest discussions. It's like, hey, there's marks here. What, where did you get those from? So that I'm not assuming she's being abused.
Okay.
But that sparked something for me. It sparked a curiosity, and the fact that she was so open, and we had all these amazing conversations every time she came in. I kept picking her brain. I'm like, what is that? How does that work? Eventually, I got involved in that community, had my own experiences, and discovered that it actually allowed me to reenact the abuse, but script a new outcome to it. And by doing that, it's like deep trance meditation, hypnosis all together in a kinesthetic experience. And it transformed me. It allowed me to actually step out of depression that I didn't even realize I'd had for the previous 30 years. And, start to really move into a place where it was like, oh, I think I kind of like myself. And then from there, because I was in this healing background, I really wanted to take other people on this journey. I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like 2 sessions of this, and I'm like just wiped out what I couldn't get to in, 20 years of therapy, right? Like I was like, oh my God. Now I ended up finding out that most people don't want to go to the dungeon. Can't understand why, Hey?
Yeah, you want to watch. But
Really?
I mean, the 20 years of therapy probably prepared you
It
to have
did.
that swift transformation.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing. Yeah.
I was ready, and I was very fortunate that I found some people who were very safe to be with and who had a very healing spin on the BDSM. So, the stars kind of aligned a little bit as well as I was ready. But that training of being a dominatrix has been such a gift for me in my coaching
Yeah.
because I'm comfortable making people uncomfortable in order for them to get what it is that they truly desire.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that, and for so many people, most people are unwilling to allow people to feel a little bit of discomfort in order to, move through. And so I can create a safe space where it's like, I got your back. Now get in there and slay that dragon because I'm right behind you. I'm going to make sure nothing bad's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
That kind of environment. So it's really been a tremendous gift. And it sounds crazy on the outside, but when you start to look at what the dynamics really are, it makes a lot of sense for the work that I do today.
Wow. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for sharing your background so openly. I just find it fascinating. and I think it's really important that, in talking to you and hearing you and experiencing you, I can see that if there was such a big transformation to happen, that I know there would be a safe space with you where one could do so without, falling off the deep end and then having a hard time coming back up again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wow, amazing. So our time is nearly up. So let's switch to something a little more
a little lighter.
upbeat. So what is your favorite kind of client?
You know what? I love the type A driven entrepreneur, male or female. They because they're often super smart. So I love smart people to be working with. They shift quickly once you get past their resistance initially. And to watch them just like immediately implement is so much fun.
Yeah. I can only imagine that. I mean, I see it with my people once they show up powerfully. That just makes everything worth it. Yeah, for sure. That's amazing. So if somebody wants to get in contact with you, Dana, where do they go?
I would say either, connect with me on LinkedIn, provided I'm not in LinkedIn jail. Recently, let out.
Experience.
Yeah. And or my website. So danafarrant.com is great. I happen to be the only Dana Farrant in the world, which is kind of a cool little piece.
High five. I have the same thing. I'm the only Nina Froriep, and it makes life so much easier.
Right? You can always get your name on every social media and whatever it is, right?
Yeah, without 5 middle initials and the number, 4, 5, something behind it. Yes. Yeah. Although sometimes I don't know where it was in the early days. I went on Yahoo or Hotmail or one of those, or AOL. I don't remember. And I wanted to have Nina Froriep at yahoo.com. And it's like, this is taken. I'm like, no, it's not.
Who's taking my name?
No. Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you so much yet again for your time. I really just absolutely adore speaking to you and learning from you. And guys, check out Dana. She's absolutely beyond fabulously amazing. And thank you everybody who's been watching. And for the question, Rocio, thank you so much for that. And we'll all see you actually next week already again, because we did push this talk by a week because somebody was in LinkedIn jail. So anyway, everybody be well and have a great week, and see you next week. Bye-bye.